The Constitution of Sri Lanka, which was formed in 1978, includes the right to occasion in its chapter on fundamental rights, and through this the workers are permitted to establish or to get the membership in a trade union. And here, according to the Trade Union Ordinance, that trade union can be defined as a combination of permanent or temporary workers and employees, or it can be named as a certain association between them which has been established with one or more of the following objectives according to the Trade Union Ordinance. Now let's see what the objectives of a trade union are. Also, let's consider as to what the functions and duties of a trade union are. The connection between workers and employees or among workers or among employees become more formal and systematic. The connection between workers and employees or among workers or among employees became more formal and systematic through this, to impose restrictions on the existence of a certain profession or a business. A trade union can impose restrictive conditions on the existence of a certain profession or a business to represent the workers or the employees in trade union issues. This can also be seen as a representation of the workers or the employers when trade union issues come up in the sector. Organizing financial facilitation in relation to strikes or a termination of service relation to a certain profession or an industry, promotion of financial activities in such instances, or providing salaries and other benefits to the members during a strike or termination of employment, and to conduct forums with the participation of two or more trade unions. The trade unions organize and promote the financing activities during strikes or suspensions related to a certain job or an industry, and also during strikes and work suspensions, two or more trade unions get together and conduct forums on providing salaries and other benefits to the members of the trade union. Today we can see that the trade unions are mushrooming. Also, we can see a lot of strikes happening in the world of work. So, how do the trade unions function during strike? And you have to understand how to take the trade unions ensure the workers' rights during such times. A trade union should get registered after 3 months from its establishment. However, this period is extended up to 6 months. The proper application should be produced, and 7 or more members should place their signatures in the application, and a copy of trade union regulations and a statement on the following information should be presented to the registrar. And now we will see what the required information are. The names of members presenting the application, their professions and addresses, name of the trade union and the address of the head office, positions of the trade union officers, the names, ages, addresses and professions, objective of the trade union, laws and constitution should be produced, and then the relevant registrar would issue the certificate confirming the registration of the trade union, provided that no inconsistency exists between the trade union and the related legal provisions. The names of members presenting the application, their professions and addresses, name of the trade union and the address of the head office, positions of the trade union officers, their names, ages, addresses and professions, objectives of the trade union, laws and constitutions should be produced. And then the relevant registrar would issue the certificate confirming the registration of the trade union, provided at no inconsistency exists between the trade union and the related legal provisions. And here they have to include general information as well. Similarly, the laws and the statutes are needed. Here it explains as to how people are appointed for these positions and how they can resign, for which period, and what are the objectives are. Any organization has a constitution, and the trade union should also work according to the constitution, and the register would conduct an analysis in relation to the trade union to see whether there are discrepancies among the information provided, and after that the certificate of registration is issued to the trade union. And the trade union should not, according to the legal provisions described above. As per the Industrial Disputes Act, there are certain conditions imposed by the employers on the workers regarding the possibility to join a trade union, and also regarding the restrictions imposed on that. And here, if any undue influence is made on a certain worker, it is considered as unreasonable practice. Similarly, the employer should never discriminate the worker in any working section simply for the reason of joining a trade union. So, where do all these provisions come from? These provisions are included in the Industrial Dispute Act. And the Act contains many more information. The persons who are above 21 years of the age and not less than 16 years can become a member of a trade union. 2,074 trade unions. In Sri Lanka, there are 2,074 registered trade unions. Public sector, 54.5%, corporate sector, 27.5%, private sector, 18%. 54.5% of the trade unions come under the public sector, 27.5% trade unions belong to the corporate sector, and only 80% of the trade unions belong to the private sector. So when we discuss about the private sector employment, we can consider as to where we are. 9%, 5% of the total labor force of Sri Lanka. The workers covered by trade unions is 9%, 5% of the total labor force of Sri Lanka. Right to collective bargaining. Now let's see what's the right to collective bargaining is. The provisions for collective bargaining come under the Industrial Disputes Act, a minimum of 40% of the workforce. To have 14% of the total workforce of a certain working place as members represented by a trade union is a very limiting condition, and in the Industrial Disputes Act, a collective agreement has been defined as an agreement related to the conditions and regulations of workers engaged in a certain employment activity in a particular industry. And through the collective bargaining agreements, better benefits and coverage is given to the workers when compared with the benefits provided under the ordinary law. And if the collective bargaining agreement contains less advantages and provisions when compared with the provisions available in the general law, such agreements cannot be enforced. The collective bargaining agreement shall be considered enforced from the date on which it's made public, and the relevant parties of the agreement, including the trade union, employer, and the workers, have to abide this. A collective bargaining agreement is prepared for a specific or non-specific period. With regard to the cancellation of an agreement, a notice prepared according to the proper format would be provided by the Commissioner to all the relevant parties, including the trade union and the employer. And a collective bargaining agreement for an unspecified period can also be cancelled, and the collective bargaining agreement should be prepared in the written form, and further the representatives of the parties should place their signatures in it. The above act can be considered as a source for collective bargaining agreements. Here the section 5 to 10 and section 32(4) of the Industrial Disputes Act of 1950 are important. Now let's see how a worker who has joined a trade union gets the right to strike. As per the law prevailing in Sri Lanka, the right to strike has not been clearly recognized. And we have seen as how government media responds during the periods of a strike and how they respond to them. Practically, we can study these situations. However, the trade union ordinance has defined about the strike measures, and similarly, it says the strikes should not be conducted in relation to the essential services. Here, the relevant information has been given in the specific manner and through specific formats. And here we can name the essential services during a strike action. And the workers, excluding those engaged in the specified essential services, have the right to take strike action accordingly. And this right has been very clearly recognized as lawful and legally permitted. The right to strike action has been limited based on the essential service list and mediation or compulsory utilization. As a result of the Trade Union Ordinance, the Industrial Disputes Act has given a certain definition for strikes. And idea is that a group of people serving in a particular profession or in a particular industry get together and stop their work or refuse to work collectively. In other words, a group of people engaged in a certain profession or who have been deployed thus refuse to take up their job or to engage in continuous service based on the certain common understanding. That is how a strike action has been defined, and in a strike defined thus and also in an industrial dispute, we consider that it may happen between the employers and the workers or among workers based on a certain matter relevant to the job. Social space. This is your space. Your protection is your right. Please join with us to reach the latest information on Socialist Space. Subscribe us. Press the bell icon too.